Alright, so welcome back to part 2 of the preset VIZE remake of Typical by Alok and Steve Aoki. So in the last part we made the verses and the builds as per usual, and we're going to go and take a listen back to what we did in that video now before we proceed with doing the drops.
Give me that taste, night and today's, give me the highs I love. It's always the same, screaming my name, yeah you know what I want. You made me a sinner, can't look in the mirror. Your love is a thriller. Hey. You hold me like you know you only playing this game cause you lonely. You're playing this game cause you lonely. It's a typical.
Alright, so let's jump into the drop. So where this song differs a little bit on the chorus is that we start the chorus on the third bar here. I believe it's the third bar. My music theory is not the best, but so it starts here, so you're not getting any chords or notes introduced until that bit, and that kind of throws you off a little bit because on the second half of the drop you hear this, but the very first part of the drop is here. So it's just a little bit different. It's been cut a little bit so the vocal's kind of isolated at the start, which is kind of a nice effect because it gives you a different beginning compared to the second half here, if that makes any sense. So to start our bass, we've got this preset called Chain, which is in Car Music Vol.1, and here is the MIDI we've got for it. So we've got some swing on here, we're using the shuffle template as usual, and I think it's about 35%. Next up I've got this preset called Often, which is a great preset again to thicken up sounds, and here's how it sounds. We then have this preset called Advance, which gives it that noisy kind of analog feel to the whole sound. Next up we've got a womp sound, which is filling in little gaps here in the bass line, and we're using the womp sound called Womp No, which you can get from Car Music Vol.2. This is a really good pack if you want to get a bunch of different kind of like filler bass sounds to swell in between different bits. So this is how it sounds on its own, and alongside the current bass sounds we've then got these different womps here which are kind of in this style of like a topic womp. So here's how they sound. So those are all of the elements of the bass. On the processing we've got a bit of distortion. This is just the standard vanilla kind of fast distortion you can get in FL. I just wanted to give the whole sound a bit of grit, and then we've got some CLA compression as well. It's quite heavy, it's doing about 5-6 dB reductions, but it kind of glues everything all together. When you've got womp sounds and stuff, it just really makes it all sit in the same space and kind of nothing pokes out too much. And then here I'm using the classic chain, which is what I'm going to use throughout the whole song. So the next element I thought I'd cover is the key stab, which we see earlier on in the remake. And this is also being sidechained so you don't kind of get it sitting above the kick in the drop part. So now we're going to take a look at some drums. We've got a kick here, and as I said earlier, the first 2 bars, I think it's 2 bars, they've been left empty, so the kick doesn't come in until this part here. And now this next part is quite an important part to the sound of this song. It really gives it a lot of power. So this is basically just having a reverse kick swelling into the main kick. It gives it a proper like suction into the drop, which is just a nice effect, and you can really hear it clearly in this song. So the kick I actually went for the main kick in this song is Car Music Vol.2's kick number 5. We're then recycling the same claps from the verses, so the Fish in the Lake Volume 3 claps. So now I've got some impacts to really mark the start of this drop here. We're starting with this noise exhaust, which is from Main Stage Vol.1. And then I'm using this impact here, which is really good to add a lot of top end as always. And then finally we got this noise exhaust here, just adding more noise and top end to the whole drop part. So this is what we've got so far on the drop. I then noticed these accent claps which kind of come in at random points here. This is how they sound. So they're kind of more smacky and have a bit of like a pre-shift to them. So now the next element I noticed was this weird guitar / harmony kind of sound which comes in on the second half of the drops. And on its own it sounds ridiculous, but this is how it sounds. So it obviously has a really preset-y kind of sound to it, but this is a really good one to kind of chuck in when you've got loads of other elements and you want to give a bit of an impression that there's a guitar there. And as far as the processing goes on this, I think it's just literally being sidechained. We're also reintroducing the piano from the previous part, and this time it's also being sidechained, so it doesn't kind of sit above the kick or anything. I've then added an open hi-hat, which is from Car Music Vol.1. And on the drums processing, we've just got all of them bussed and then sent to a CLA compressor. And then I've also thrown in the shaker loop from the previous part as well, just to kind of add a bit more rhythm in the background. So I believe we've covered every element there from the entire song, verse, builds and chorus. Let me know if you think anything was missing or how you thought this one was in general, and what you want to see in the next videos as well. But without any further ado, let's go and take a listen back to this entire thing.
Give me that taste, night into days, give me the highs I love. It's always the same, screaming my name, yeah, you know what I want. You made me a sinner, can't look in the mirror. Your love is a thriller. Hey. You hold me, you hold me, you hold me like you know you only playing this game cause you're lonely. You're playing this game cause you're lonely. It's so typical, call me cynical. No scriptures, you know, it's like I'm invisible. It's so typical, once it's difficult. When I'm physical, so typical, it's so typical.